and we can discuss them in future broadcasts. Now, I would like to present to you an interview that Dr. David Ajibade had with a breast cancer uh, patient, and that is Mrs. Toni Fowler. She is someone who is living with breast cancer. During this interview, she explained how it is. She found out she had breast cancer and what are the lifestyle changes she did uh, after her diagnosis and what was the outcomes as a result of it. She is a very empowering woman. I admire her. I admire her personality. I admire who she is. I also admire her the fact that she appears to be a very devout Christian. And so I gained from her perspective as a person living with breast cancer, and I think you will too. Now, the interview is rather long, so this today will be part one, and next week we'll have part two. So, without further ado, let me present you the interview that Dr. David Ajibade had with Mrs. Toni Fowler.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. My name is Dr. David Ajibade with the Brain and Body Foundation. Now, you know how I always talk about cancer and how cancer is that's how I started my career, and especially when it comes to women's cancer. Breast cancer is the number one cancer killer among women in the US and probably in Nigeria as well, more than uterus cancer and more than cancer of the ovaries. And with Black women in particular, Black women tend to take an even worse kind of cancer known as triple negative cancer, which is a major problem. Well, regardless, whatever the kind of cancer is, you've got to have the right attitude towards it. And what I tell women is that once you're diagnosed with cancer, you've got to settle it once and for all that you are in the fight of your life for the rest of your life. You're going to have to make some major changes, whether in your thinking or how you believe about things or how you eat, your diet, your supplements. Of course, you've got to follow your oncologist's instructions. But a lot of that success is going to depend on you, whether or not you survive past 5 years, past 10 years. So you really, really, really have to make that choice. And I say this because I have had people who are really close to me die of cancer. And I think in some cases, and not in all cases, but in some cases, they didn't make that decision. Sometimes they let it off until too late. Other times we're just praying and believing that God is going to change it and turn things around. Other times they were just not willing to make the changes. So it's really, really, really important that you decide once and for all, even if you've had a fantastic cancer treatment and your doctor says that you are in full remission, that you're okay, it still doesn't mean you have to let down your guard. Those principles and those practices that you put into place, you've got to continue doing them. And don't you ever, ever let off. Again, you've got set it once and for all. You are in the fight of your life for the rest of your life. And with that, I wanted to introduce to you a very, very good friend. Well, actually, she's my sister, more like friend than sister. Her and her whole family are family to me. Her name is Toni Fowler, and she has an amazing story. Well, it's a story in progress. Let's put it that way, because she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer? Stage 4, spread to the bone, the skeleton, the backbone.
And lymph nodes.
And lymph nodes. Okay, thankfully not to the lungs yet. And she discovered it because of after going through a stressful period. She's going to tell you the story very, very soon. But I just want to set the stage that when I've been watching her posts on Facebook, and I've just been amazed at her testimony and this ongoing story of how the successes and things she's learned and how she's applied them and how it's making a difference in her life. And I thought this would be so helpful to our viewers and our audiences around the world. So with that said, Toni. How are you, beautiful?
I'm wonderful. Honestly, well.
Good, good, good. One looking at you, one wouldn't even believe that you have this diagnosis. So let's start with the very beginning. When you first, how did you first find out you had cancer in the first place? Let's
Okay,
start there.
before I even go there, you just made a wild point and said that more Black women have triple negative breast cancer than anything else.
That's
My
correct.
own mother, I lost my mother to triple negative breast cancer last summer.
Yep.
And I had never heard that fact. So that's amazing. Okay, back on my story. Uh, I got to give a little background of what happened with my husband, and I'll say it quickly. But February 23rd, my husband went into the hospital for an open heart surgery because they found a golf ball sized tumor in his heart. And the first surgery went well. They took it out. Everything was good. And 8 minutes into recovery, he sat up in his bed, panicked from the ventilator in his throat, and tore open his aorta and bled out. He lost 2 quarts of blood in the first minute. To make a long story short, they rushed him back into open heart again. He was in a coma for 5 weeks. He lost 49 units of blood and plasma they had to replace over that time. And you know, our bodies only hold 10 units. He had 6 strokes. After almost 6 weeks, he came back to life when they were ready to pull the plug. And I told him not yet. It was a Monday and they gave me this big spiel. And I said, by Thursday, he'll be awake. Well, when I told my kids that, 3 others confirmed they had gotten by Thursday also. Sure enough, Thursday, he woke up and we began working on rehab. He couldn't even.
That is amazing. Hang on just a minute. You said they were going to pull the plug. In other words, going to let pull the plug as in pull the plug?
Yes, because he was taking too long to come to. And yet, oh, I must back up. This is a part of what I want to give everybody. So at the beginning of the year, and I'll keep my track going. At the beginning of the year, my whole family comes up with a word for each one of our lives that we believe, we feel impressed with, that that's what we're supposed to work on in our life that year. And the word hope kept coming to me. And I thought, I don't need more hope. I have more hope than anybody I know. You know, I trust God with everything. So after I heard it 3 or 4 times, I said, Father, if this is really you, I need you to confirm this to me. And I never argue with the Lord, but I just couldn't even believe he was giving me that word. And so I opened up within an hour. I opened up an old purse and I pulled out a rock and it's had hope engraved on it. And I knew that was from God. So when David bottomed out, from the moment it first happened to him, I knew he was going to be okay. God had given me the word hope. And I knew I wasn't to lose hope no matter what. So when the doctors said, hey, look, he's not having enough he died for 20 minutes. No blood going to any organs for 20 minutes. After 6 weeks, he's not coming to. They said, we really think if he doesn't come to, we need to pull the plug. And I said, nope, he's coming back to life on Thursday. And he did. He did. So after that, it's been a huge road to recovery. He stayed in the hospital another 6 weeks. And then he's been home. And he's doing better all the time. So anyway, back on my story and how it tied in. 8 days into his coma, I was struck with the most severe pain I've ever had in my entire life in my right shoulder blade. And I started living on Advil to deal with the pain because I went and saw him every single day he was in the hospital, like 6 to 8 hours a day. And I'm leaning over in his bed, helping him, taking care of things. And it was so much pain. Well, then within a week, it had rotated around to the front and my ribs hurt so badly. I knew they were broken somehow and I had no idea how. Well, I keep continuing in the worst pain that's getting worse and worse all the time for 6 weeks. And I'm living on Advil, right, to deal with it. And after about 6 weeks of this, well, he was in the hospital 12 weeks. So after 2 weeks before he got out of the hospital, one Saturday night, I was in so much pain. I was laying in bed just dying and crying. And I called him at 4 a.m. in the hospital. He's awake. And I said, honey, this is just horrific. I think I need to go to the ER. And he said, well, check your blood pressure. And I did, and it was 188. So I got my son, Isaac. What? Question?
188 over what?
I don't know, but the top number was 188. That was bad enough to me. Dave said, get to the ER. So I went into the ER, and they did a CAT scan. And they came out to me and they said, you have stage 4 breast cancer that's in your lymph nodes and your spine, 3 different places, and you need to get into a doctor immediately. Well, you know, I'm not somebody I thought would ever have breast cancer. I breastfed 10 kids for 25 years straight. And I thought I was just all cleaned out as anybody could ever be. I live in a state of total intentional forgiveness and peace every day of my life. I guard my heart with forgiveness and peace. So I was so stunned that I could have cancer, especially breast cancer, but it didn't hit me below the belt, under the skin. I wasn't freaked out. It wasn't even worth crying to me. I literally got in the car with my son, Isaac, and I said, you know what? It's par for the course for this life. I'm going to beat it, and I'm going to be better off for it. I'm going to come through this stronger and better than I've ever been. And that was my decision from moment one. And I'm not somebody who likes to, I won't live in a dark place. I won't live without peace. I don't live in a place that I don't want to be in my own head. I have learned how to have peace and joy no matter what's going on. I can talk about that more later. But that very day, I decided I would change my diet. And that day, I radically changed everything I was doing. And
real quick,
Sure.
I wanted to, first of all, I want to ask as to why it was diets that was the first thing that came to mind. But before you answer, I want to quickly say this, that is so important, the way you reacted or responded to that diagnosis. And I think those first few seconds and minutes after one receives a diagnosis are crucial. They make the difference between, in my opinion, life and death. As you know, I started my career as a cancer doctor. And what we would do, most times when we would start treating the patient, you already knew it. They were already defeated. They already felt that they were going to die. Their mother died from it. Their father died from it. They're going to die from it as well. And it's so you started the treatment way behind the 8 ball because you knew that this was going to be difficult. Because we knew that was like 20 years ago. I knew enough to know that you need the cooperation, both from the inside and the outside, of the patient or the individual to get the best out of their cancer treatment. We had seen too many cases where people would give up and the cancer treatment would not work. And other cases where people would start treatment and they would say they want to get better. You see in their actions, you see in their thoughts, you see in their affect and their whole demeanor that they do get better. And that makes a difference. So what I used to do, and I don't know if I told you this before, Tony, was that I would say, well, listen, and I worked in a place where there were Muslims. It was predominantly a Muslim city. And because they knew that I was there to help them, I would say, listen, I'm going to take you to a passage in the book of Proverbs that says that a heart at peace, and this is to your point, a heart at peace gives life to the flesh.
Amen.
That's Proverbs 14:30. I started all my patients with that. I would say, okay, let's read this. So if I'm going to help you, you want to make sure that you have a positive, and I would say, all kind of a positive or a good outlook, because if you don't, if you're always depressed, if you're always unhappy, if you think that you're not going to get better, then you won't get better, and everything I'm going to be doing will be a waste. So again, to your point, this is so crucial that you knew enough to respond in that way. So good on you. Now tell us why you decided to think about it.
Well, you know, it's so universal when something terrible happens to any of us that we go, why me? Why me, God? Why would you do this to me? I just learned a long time ago, through a lifetime of all kind of trials, that's not the question to ask. Okay, maybe why me? Like, why did I get this? Like, what can I learn? And
Right.
I have a real good friend, Carlton Pearson, who I talked to early on, and he had cancer 20 years ago. And he said, I just decided I was going to let cancer be my teacher. And once I was through learning what I needed to learn, I let it go and it left me. And that was such a great foundational thought to have. But before I ever talked to him, my initial response was as I shared. And then that first day, I spent the day in bed. It's the only day I didn't go see my husband in the hospital. And I decided the one thing I know that I could attribute this to on any level was my diet. And honestly, I ate pretty well. Most people tell you I ate healthy. But you know what? I turned 60 2 weeks before I got my diagnosis. For 60 years, I've never pigged out. I'm not one who eats too much. My mother limited us to 2 cookies, to everything so I've just never been one to pig out. But I ate what I wanted when I wanted, right? And that day I decided I have 10 kids, as you know, and I bake all the time for them. I used to bake all the time. I've gotten way away from it over the last few years, trying to cut out sugar. And actually, since Thanksgiving, I had decided to cut out sugar. And when I was spending all that time in the hospital, you'd be proud of me, Dio. Never once did I get anything out of a vending machine. I never splurged. I never pigged out and thought, okay, I deserve this. I would eat 1 salad a day. And I believe it's the way I was eating in the hospital that even helped me get to where I am. So that day in bed, the first day I found out, I thought, I'm cutting out sugar. I have to cut out sugar. And I am not a big vegetable fan. And I know I need vegetables. And so I started that day radically change my diet. And I want to tell you something of what I've done, because anybody can incorporate this. I started drinking more than I eat of healthy natural juices like vegetable juices, green juices, not so much fruit juice. I learned very quickly on that I had too much sugar in my system and was told I needed to stay away from even fruit. So what I do, I get up every morning and have this pure cranberry juice cocktail that's healing for the gut. And then I've learned from you and others that fasting is fantastic to kill cancer. And so I basically am only eating 2 or 3 hours a day, and I'm fasting a good 20, 22 hours of the day.
Oh,
but
wow.
in my yes, I knew you'd be happy with that.
I am.
In my fasting, I drink 1 or 2 green drinks, protein drinks, and I feel really good. And then about 5 o'clock, I usually have a big green salad. And some days I have clean meat with that, organic, grass-fed meat.
Yeah.
And I just feel so good all the time. So let me tell you this. When I left the ER, they gave me strong pain meds, right? And I took those for about 3 weeks. And then I realized I was having no more pain. And since I was 3 weeks into this journey, sometime early May, I haven't taken pain pills or anything because I feel no more pain. I have amazing energy from the way I'm eating and drinking. I feel better than I've ever felt my whole life. And I started having pains about 55 years old in my life, arthritis in my hands and feet and other aches and pains. And now that I have been eating like this, I just don't have any more pain anywhere. I never feel pain. And
That is
so
crazy.
I know I started chemo 4 weeks ago, and they're having me take the 1 chemo pill a day for 3 weeks on and then 1 week off. And tomorrow I complete my first 4-week cycle. And they did my blood numbers today, ran my blood to make sure my white blood cell count isn't too high. And they said, your numbers look fantastic and your cancer marker of where the tumors are looks fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing. Okay, I got to tell you one other thing. When I was initially diagnosed, remember I said I had pain in my ribs? 3 broken ribs at that point because the cancer had encroached on the ribs and simply broke them. And so I'm leaning over, taking care of David every day, all day long in the hospital with these 3 broken ribs. Then my rear started hurting so bad, my tailbone. every step I took, well, that was okay, so about every step I took for weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, I hurt so badly. And I learned that the cancer was so bad in my tailbone that they told me if I didn't get surgery imminently, that there was a compression going on because of the cancer. They said, until we can get you your appointment with the surgeon, if your legs ever go numb or weak on you, within 48 hours, if you don't get in for that surgery, you'll be paralyzed for the rest of your life.
Wow.
Even when I heard that, I'm like, oh, bullharky, I'm not going to be paralyzed and I'll get in there by the time I need to. And I just had so much peace through the whole process. I knew the Father was taking care of me. I was doing the huge thing I knew I could do. And I kept examining my heart and asking the Lord if there's anything he wanted to show me, but I knew it was my diet mostly. And so as I was doing that, I believed the Lord was going to take care of me. So when I finally got my big MR, my 2.5 hour MRI, and then I saw the surgeon, he said, you don't even need surgery anymore. You don't have any issue here. He said, whatever you're doing, you keep doing because you're in fantastic shape. He didn't say to me, the cancer's gone. He just said, you don't need surgery whatsoever.
Wait, back up. So what happened to the 3 spots in your spine?
I don't know exactly, because by the time the MRI, I told you, after they did the MRI, my report said I had lesions, unlimited lesions, it said. Unlimited lesions of cancer all over.
Unlimited.
Unlimited. I think that was the word they used. But by the time the surgeon looked at my MRI results, he said, you don't need surgery. So,
that's crazy.
I don't know. My pain just quit hurting in my tailbone. I feel no pain anywhere.
Wow, what a riveting testimony. Did you guys gain anything from that? I sure did. First of all, the first thing I gained from it is always thinking positive. Yes, life hits us with positive things, but it also hits us with negative things, okay? And when you are approached with any negative event, negative diagnosis, initially you're going to think, hey, man, that sucks. But see that as something positive, just like Mrs. Toni Fowler did. When she got diagnosed with breast cancer, she said, I'm going to beat this. She said, I guess this is part of my story of life, but I'm going to beat this. And there is so much research that is done about the mind and body connection. If you think positive, your body reacts positively. The second thing I also learned that she did, I didn't learn it, but the thing I appreciated that she did was that she immediately changed her diet. She reduced her sugar intake and she increased her vegetable intake. Why? Because she didn't want to feed that cancer more than what it has already been fed. And she stated that when she changed her diet, prior to her changing her diet, remember, she was complaining of pains and things of that nature. But when she changed her diet, she started feeling better. She went back to her surgeon who they were trying to, or they were going to do surgery. She went back to them and they said she didn't need it. And so the power of diet is key. And, we're going to talk more about how to change our diet, how to switch from what we know of as the American diet, processed food, increased salt, increased sugar, and how to live more back in how they lived in the Bible, how to eat more fruits and vegetables. Not saying you can't eat fat, not saying you can't eat sugar, but what is it to eat fat and sugar in moderation? Okay. So I thank her for her wonderful testimony. Also, remember that this is just part one. Part two will be coming next week. We will finish up her interview with Dr. David Ajibade in part two of Living with Breast Cancer series. I want to thank Dr. David Ajibade, founder of the Brain and Body Foundation, for allowing me to use this video to show you all today. And please feel free to look more up of the Brain and Body Foundation. His foundation is doing wonderful work when it comes to cancers, when it comes to sickle cell disease, even when it comes to other mental conditions such as Alzheimer's. So please look up his foundation on the web. It's called Brain and Body Foundation, and check them out. Okay, well, that is it for this week. Again, if you have any questions, please make sure to jot it down in the comments section. And I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And until next time, stay blessed. Bye.